was gonna waive on that. He made that announcement back in November.
I think that's
Okay. Good. Okay. We take all, and everybody who could rally for the kids out and do it. Must have. That's really good.
Wait, what? You do? I'm gonna tell you something. So my business is getting served. We have an ADA complaint against us. It should $1,000 because he is a small business owner because my back of the bar was an inch too high and could not see to sit at separate. If California's the first one to copy, stop getting rid of all our small businesses and taking money away from our kids. No, they're going after this guy's for like his 200.
It's the same guy.
This one is called Albany. There's like 3 or 4 big ones. This guy's from New York.
Because this one guy is just so that. I saw that about a year and a half ago.
Hey. His happy face is here.
We didn't start it.
Yeah. Here, you can have these raised today.
Oh, no, I
No, you don't want them.
We have some.
Take your time. There's food in the kitchen.
Well, isn't it kind of related to the budget too?
Are we doing it? Okay.
Let's check with,
Are we doing it? Closed captioning, yes.
Should we live?
Yes.
Hot mic?
For how long?
I think maybe it started at 6. I think it started.
Oh, you didn't start it.
We got some assistance.
Okay. Let's do it. So I don't need to do anything on here.
We have to push to talk.
If you like, we can do that. If you flip it, the other way, then it's just be on it. Testing 1, 2.
It's just always set to push to talk.
All right.
So calling to order this meeting on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, and we'll do a roll call.
President Davidson,
Here.
Vice President Boyd,
Here.
Trustee Rosenbaum,
Here.
Trustee Kahn,
Here.
Trustee Hopwood,
Here.
Student Trustee Dana is running a little late, Trustee Garcia Bustamante,
Here.
Superintendent Wells.
Here.
All right, we will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you would like to. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do you want help reading the norms? Do you want one of us to take on part of it?
Let me find it first.
Sorry, here, I'll read the mission and vision because it's here, and if you want to do the norms.
That would be fine.
Okay, and it's on the projector too, but it's kind of light. The mission and vision statement, the mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Meeting norms. Maintain a focus on what is best for our students. Ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. Endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's beliefs in what is best for students. Make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind, while others are allowed to express their own points of view, even if one disagrees.
Thank you. All right, we will now approve the agenda unless anybody has any questions or comments.
I do. I'd like to suggest that we move number 8, superintendent and board member reports, to the end of the meeting so that we can get on with business first, which is that's what we did last meeting.
Okay, so we'll take a motion unless anyone else has questions.
Do such thing.
Explicitly state that we're moving the item.
Aye. All in favor? Oh, I made a motion.
I know, but do we need to state the motion that we're moving item 8 to the end of the meeting in the motion?
Move that we're moving item 8 to the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All opposed?
I'm rusty.
Okay. The agenda passes with all in favor. Okay.
Trustee?
You do those
Yeah.
at the end too?
I think ours would be better at the end as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So retroactive. I changed this. Okay. So then persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda.
This actually says spotlight first.
I scrolled down to the board reports. Okay, we're going to do the spotlight, which I'm really excited about. There was a wonderful project in Albany recently, and we were lucky enough to see some parts of this. And I want to thank all of these volunteers and community members for all of this work. And I want to thank Kim Trutine for helping put this all together. So there's a mural at the Albany Children's Center, and it was just completed on one of these kind of rainy days. And I'm going to let Carol come up after we kind of just go through the slideshow of some of the pictures of it and kind of explain how it started and some of the ideas and corporations.
It's beautiful.
These are all the butterflies of Albany Hill.
Wow.
We have some volunteers painting it right there. And this is the ribbon cutting ceremony. And these are all of the volunteers who took part in this wonderful project. And of course, the Albany Community Foundation and the Friends of Albany Hill, who helped with not only volunteers, but also with some financial support for the project. And we really just appreciate all of this to make our Children's Center and our city that little bit more charming and beautiful. And Carol, do you want to? Thank you.
Good evening. Sunday I was walking along Jackson Street by the mural, and a young mother and her child, probably 6, 7, were walking in front of the mural. And so the child, she's touching each of the butterflies as she goes by, and she gets down to the vetches and the Pacific pea, and she takes her finger and she outlines, and she goes around the tendrils, which are very curvy. And I hadn't planned when I designed it for it to be tactile, but obviously it is. And so it has more meaning, and it will continue to have more meaning, I'm sure, as it goes along. So my name is Carol Fitzgerald. I've lived on Madison Street since the mid-'70s. I'm a practicing artist and an instructor in art at City College of San Francisco. I have to let that title go because I retired on the 31st after many, many years, and I loved it, but it was time. So the theme, of course, was symbiosis, which you've mentioned. And several of us that were volunteering have been doing projects on Albany Hill since the 90s, and we sponsor every year some educational programs. We have a wonderful birding program, and we've won grants to do urban forestry projects. And so we have quite an interest in the flora and the fauna. And we were lucky enough during these years to make the acquaintance of Robert Langston, who's the late Robert Langston. He was retired from the Western Regional Lab here in Albany, and he was a lepidopterist. And also Dr. Jerry Powell at UC Berkeley, who's now retired, but he keeps the list. He made the list for the moths. Robert Langston made the list of the butterflies. And then Dr. Barbara Erder, who is now also retired, but she was the botanist and curator at the Jepson herbarium at UC. So these people made these lists, and so we took the list, and that's how we knew which butterflies are that are complementary hosts for the plants that are up there. So the plants are all the native plants that are up there that are hosts, and starts with the native grasses, and there are 2 panels of native plants, and then there's a panel that's native shrubs and bushes that are up there, and then the trees, the 5 native trees, which were just, that part was just completed at Thanksgiving. And so there is this great, we know about the monarchs, but all these other butterflies also are endangered, and in fact, all of our insect world. So we're hoping by the mural, and we wanted it to be educational, that people will take advantage of the reference and plant some of those host plants. And they're not so showy as the pollen plants, which attract many flying insects, but the hosts have to be there because that's the caterpillar food. So if you plant one, you want to plant more than one because the caterpillars are going to eat the leaves of the one plant. But so that's our next project, is try to interest people to actually plant these. So I like to do art alone, but I also like to do it with the community. And because of the pandemic, we were kind of climbing the walls, including myself, teaching from home, living alone, and just wanting to do this project, which I had done the drawings before over the years. And so I sent an email to Alexi Ritchie, who I think was the director at the time, at least that was the name I was given. And within 2 weeks, she was back to me with approval from the superintendent, thank you, and from the head of the building and grounds, giving us approval. I mean, that kind of speed does not work, and it's been magic like that from the beginning, the execution. Plenty of volunteers, and I would like them to stand up, all the people that are here that worked on it, because it couldn't have been done without a community. And most... Thank you. And most of us live in the neighborhood. A few are just over the line, but we call them neighbors. So you did a wonderful job of kind of explaining. I don't know if I have to say too much more. We did, that was kind of a joke in the beginning, because I had said that we would, you know, use the best in materials, because I have done murals before, and so I know the kind of paint you get, and that we were going to be using the graffiti coating. And I was, afterwards, it was like, that was the immediate response, because we were going to protect from graffiti from then on. We were kind of laughing about that. That wall really hasn't had much graffiti in the years that I've been here. And the other thing I guess I wanted to say is that the community of Albany loves that site. I hope you never get rid of that real estate. It's had many incarnations. It was Vista when I came here. But a couple of times when I was painting, we always painted on Saturday, there was a man in a delivery truck, and he stopped and said that his daughter had gone to Vista School, and he loved it. And we had people doing that kind of thing, bringing their parents and remembering it at different stages. And it's right there in the middle of the neighborhood. It's at the foot of Albany Hill, so it's really a perfect site. So, and we would be working, especially the first year, and people would go by and honk their horns and put their thumbs up, and even on bicycles and all. We got kind of instant gratification as we went along, which was very wonderful. But I thank you very much for supporting us, and we will all enjoy this for some time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all very much.
Did anyone want to say anything that you feel like you? Okay. All right.
Okay, well, that was a good, bright, cheery start to our meeting. So we're now going to approve the consent calendar, unless anybody has any questions or comments about the consent calendar. Yes, Trustee Rosenbart?
Looking through the consent calendar, it looks like 7F might need to be a roll call. So I'm not sure if that would be appropriate or not, to pull that just for a roll call. If you take a look at it, it's on page 94. Thank you for paginating the agenda, by the way. It's a resolution for establishing special reserve fund for capital outlays, and it's laid out like a roll call, so I just want to make sure that we're legit when we approve that.
What do you think, CBO?
So I'm moving that we
Superintendent.
pull 7F for a roll call vote.
Anyone else? And I'm not seeing any public comment on this item, so we'll look for a motion.
I move the consent calendar, given 7F being pulled.
Second, and just say that the consent calendar is approved except for item 7F.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all opposed? No. The motion passes, the consent calendar passes with 7F being pulled. Let's do 7F right now.
I got to get to it.
Okay, so do we need to explain it at all?
It would be helpful for the public if there's a rationale for why we pull that and not the other. Not just gratification, but prior.
So we're going to pull 7F and have CBO Kim, is that the right person to hand it off to?
Sure. I'll explain for this item. So this item is to establish a special reserve capital project fund, which we call Fund 40. It is state fund fund that we got recommended by the county and by the consultant that since we received $14 million state reimbursed money for the state project, and it is reimbursement money now, the district decides how we want to use this money, and then board has approved how we are going to spend money. For example, the board approved $5.7 million to be spent on marine projects. So when we spend the money, now we have to move out of the Fund 35 where we received, and we are moving to this Fund 40, and we are going to have any transactions in this fund. So that is the purpose of this resolution.
So it's good that we understand how those fundings work,
Yes.
and then things have to be moved from one fund to another to maintain our special ed programs.
Special for project. So now we can.
Any other questions on this or a motion?
I move that we approve resolution number 2022-23-16 to establish special reserve fund for capital outlay projects, Fund 40.
Okay, so we'll do a roll. Oh,
I'll second it.
and we need a roll call.
Roll call, please.
President Davidson?
Yes.
Vice President Boyd?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenbaum?
Aye.
Trustee Khan? Trustee Hopwood?
Aye.
Trustee Dana?
Aye.
Trustee Garcia Bustamante?
Aye.
Excellent.
We'll now move to comments on items not on the agenda, or persons to address the board on items not on the agenda.
We're up to 12, is that right? Oh.
Item number 10. And
Oh, we did it already.
all right, I'm seeing one hand raised. All right, Nicholas Medeiros.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. I'm calling because there's a deadline in March for AB 841 application by the school district to receive $600 per classroom for CO2 monitoring. And I'll follow up with an email to the board on this, but I'll send to the whole board. There's an online application process. Ocean View Elementary, as some of you may recall, was awarded the $600 per classroom for CO2 monitoring, and that work's in progress. But the deadline for application for the rest of our classrooms to install the state-approved CO2 monitoring systems is the end of March. So what I would ask the board to do is to consider a resolution to proceed with the application for AB 841 funding and agendize that item for the next board meeting, if possible, because this is a time-sensitive issue. And to please agendize a discussion of indoor air quality for the next Environmental Action Planning Committee meeting so that we can assist the district to move this urgent item forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And seeing no other public comment, I think we can move on to our next item. And our next item is a staff report on a professional development plan progress update.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
But we're quite early.
Veronica Davidson, we might want to skip that momentarily while our professional development director is en route to the board meeting. And so she's ready to go as soon as she arrives. I hope everything's okay. I know it's wet and murky out there on the roads.
Okay, so we're going to go all the way down and do the review and discussion of the AUSD Board Policy Administrative Regulation for the equity policy. That's item 12A. Oh, you know what? We don't have.
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you. Advice earlier, turn this thing on and keep it on. But the equity policy was a 2-year plus project. It's been wordsmithed to the 10th degree. And as I shared with the policy committee, it's a policy currently that has input from various corners of our community, and it's evolving. And you can play with it for the next 10 years, but we need to have something foundational in place. And so we're recommending that the board takes this policy with the spirit of it's evolving and can be adjusted throughout the year. And so we presented it in our board packet to the community and is ready to, for any Q&A, and then hopefully finally a vote to have an equity policy. And we have the AR attached to it. And so that's what we have before you tonight.
So this is our chance to kind of have a discussion. I know that Vice President Boyd and I have seen this one for a while and done workshops on it, so I feel like we may still have some questions, but I have more familiarity. So if anyone else still has questions or comments, this is a great time.
Well, I've been looking at it for a lot more years than that. I was on the original committee, of course. So I'm glad to see this keeps moving forward and we keep bringing it up, and I really appreciate the district doing that. I had one comment on, I guess it's number 3, encourage and enable students to complete curricular courses, advanced college preparation programs, and career and technical education, as well as participate and engage in extracurricular activities, student activities. And I know there's been some debates and some courses that we've been debating, especially at the high school, implementing courses which would affect other courses. So I think I just would encourage the district and to keep the big picture in mind, in that, you know, when you do one thing, it can affect another. And the equity issue is huge among certain populations, in that we don't do enough, or we haven't in the past done enough to encourage students of color to engage in the highest level honors and AP classes. So we want to make sure that we maintain access for everything when we make adjustments to curriculum.
Duly noted. Thank you for that.
Any other comments from the board? And if there's any public comment out there, this is a great time for public comment on the board policy and administrative regulation 0415 equity. Alrighty, seeing none.
I'll just say something really quickly, which is to appreciate the work that went into putting this together in the policy committee, and to recognize, as Dr. Wells said in his introduction, that to the extent that we, recognize that there are additions we want to make or changes we want to make, we can do that. But I'm a big fan of being able to move this forward, being able to, to be able to say this is the policy that we have in place, and to not get slowed down on that. So I appreciate people who were able to, have the discussions. You can kind of get into changing every single word, but I appreciate, the great effort that went into moving that forward so that we can have something in place that is on our website that is clear that this is what we are about and this is what we stand for.
Great.
I think that we may need to do those board reports and student reports now.
Probably
And the
so.
superintendent's report, so maybe we'll be flexible with our agenda tonight. Okay. So we'll go to the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, President Veronica Davison. Tonight, my report is is two items. We don't have it, I won't have it posted here. One is that I will be bringing forward our district goals. We have 5 and a bunch of objectives. Objectives under each goal, and I wanted to bring that because that's our priority this year and our focus, and we should have our agenda reflecting that. Hence, tonight in our staff report, we're going to bring forth the current initiatives that we have throughout the districts, because the board and the community should be aware of them, and where we're at in those initiatives. And then entertain some Q&A so that the board is immersed in our 5 goals and all of our objectives, because that's what our business is about this year in terms of focus. So stay tuned. That will be coming shortly this evening. And then finally, last year, we always have the excitement of board rearrangement and presidents and vice presidents. And then every other year, we have the wonderful time, like we did this year, to have the election and a special oath of office. And it's so wonderful to see the students witness that up and close. That is just a wonderful experience. As I was looking, someone brought to my attention that the way I facilitated the board election, the president and vice president, that there's some things I could have done differently. So what I did, I went back and looked at the governor's handbook. And in the governor's handbook, it was good and refreshing to go through that. And one of the things it said is to revisit the handbook annually as a board. And so we're going to be having that coming up with our own attorney, awesome attorney, one of the best in California, Harold Freeman. So he will be facilitating that, and I'm glad the board committed to reviewing that annually. And when I went over the section of my role in terms of facilitating the election of presidency, it was very vague. That aside, through my own reflection, there's some things I could have done differently to make it less confusing. And so when I misstep, I'll be the first to say that I own that misstep, because that was mine. And so when we do have our training, I like to hear from all the board members what we can do to have the elections crystal clear and a step-by-step process. I want to be crystal clear. I won't cover up my imperfections. That was one example of them, but I own it. And so I take full responsibility for that misstep, because I could have did something differently. That aside, I'm glad that we all engaged in the democratic process, and we voted, and we have a wonderful president and vice president. But I did want to, full disclosure, it was brought to my attention, and I deal with that when that happened. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you. Would you like to make your report?
Hello. I just, the only thing that I wanted to report on is that I had the pleasure of attending the Cornell Site Council meeting. I believe that was just yesterday, and where we were going over the student achievement plan, starting in just the first goal, kind of the first half of the first goal. And I will just say that it's really energizing and just refreshing just to see the level of commitment and engagement among the parents, teachers, Principal Reimuller, of course, engaging in that process. It's difficult work. The questions that were asked are just so thoughtful, questions about, can we teach foreign language earlier, and these sort of things, and teachers giving their views and having their wisdom and their knowledge respected, and parents were just very honored that experience of the teachers, while at the same time sharing their thoughts or suggestions about how literacy could be taught, or those sort of things. And so it's just really wonderful to get to see. And it was my first meeting as in my new role as the Cornell site rep for the board. And so that was a wonderful meeting. That concludes my report.
And speaking of Cornell, I just want to congratulate the staff and the entire Cornell community for becoming a distinguished California school.
Oh, that was quick. I thought you were going to say more.
That's going to be the longest one I ever do. So.
Okay. So I'll jump into my report. For one, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Familias Latinas for holding that wonderful potluck and bringing our AUSD communities together. It was a wonderful event, and it was wonderful just to see the kids being kids again. And it's just, it brings a lot of joy to see that. And with that, the API Parent Engagement Group is also planning a Lunar New Year potluck for February 5th, which is a Sunday at 4 p.m. At Ocean View. We do encourage everybody to come. We're hoping families will be able to use this opportunity to share some of those, unique items. Like for my family in particular, there's a dish that we eat specifically on Lunar New Year, and we're excited to share that with the rest of our AUSD communities, and we're hoping others will do the same. Other than that, we had a wonderful budget committee and committee meeting. Thank you, Jackie, for always leading those. And I want to say it's extremely encouraging to see the governor's budget release and seeing how much he's putting towards K through 12 schools. However, there's a lot more advocacy that could be done, and I'm looking forward to learning from our budget committee and seeing what we as board members can do at the statewide level to make sure that we're getting the funds that we need. And with that, I will pass it on to Becky. Thank you. I'm the site rep for the high school, and I attended the Instructional Improvement Council meeting last week, which was interesting, and appreciated all of the input there from leadership and parents and faculty, and students, of course. One thing to mention that's happening at the high school at the end of this week, Thursday and Friday, is the winter dance show from 7 till 9, which would be a fun thing to attend. I'm planning on going with my daughter, who used to do dance there. And also the PTSA right now is, they kicked off their Cougar Challenge fundraiser back in November on Giving Tuesday, but they've still only raised just over $2,500 of their $8,000 goal, which goes to mini grants to teachers and staff. It also supports student clubs, leadership events, career fairs, wellness weeks, etc. So if anybody would like to contribute to the Cougar Challenge, go onto GoFundMe, look up Albany High School Cougar Challenge, and you'll find it. Any amount would be appreciated. And I think that is it for me.
Okay, well, we'll begin the student report. So Yuneli and I hosted a student advocacy committee meeting last night, and our future plans right now are to further establish the Junior Student Advocacy Committee, which is going to be taking place at the middle school at 7:30 a.m. on Thursday. It's their big leadership meeting. So we're bringing probably like around 10 students from the high school to come down to the middle school just to see how we can further create change in that environment. I think that it'll be really nice to hear younger voices. We have also completed our Cornell Elementary School visit. So we have one more to go, that's Ocean View, but we still have to plan that one. I can't think of anything else. What do you have? Oh, you have EAP.
I also have a little bit for the high school. SAT sign-up season is upon us, so if you or your student is planning on taking the exam, make sure to sign up pretty soon because the seats tend to fill up really fast and you don't want to drive 2 hours to go take that test. And broken or lost Chromebooks and or chargers will be replaced with no penalty just for this month of January, but moving forward, to replace a broken Chromebook will be $270. To replace a broken screen is $125, and to replace a charger costs $50. And then I had the pleasure of attending the Environmental Action Plan Committee last night. It was really informative. We had a presentation from Chef Sabina. She was talking about the reusable lunch program, about using reusable trays, cutlery, and just how the district is moving forward with contributing to less waste. And there were some really interesting ideas that I hope we can implement in the future. Everything is obviously in the very beginning stages, but they sound very promising, and I can't wait to see them grow. That concludes our report.
And saving a lot of milk. Yeah. I was at the same meeting, so.
Well, I thank you guys for attending. I could not make it yesterday. And I am going to pass on my board report tonight so we can get right to our staff presentation. All right. Yeah, we're going to do the staff report on professional development. And we're going to welcome up, should I just pass it to her?
Me.
To you.
Yes,
Great, that's what I
great.
thought.
Thank
To
you, ma'am.
Superintendent Wells.
Thank you, Madam Chair, President Veronica Davidson. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to be aware and very astute and engrossed in our goals. And our number one goal is student achievement for all. And in that, that include a number of district-wide initiatives. And it's important that the board and the community knows what they are and where we are with the implementation of those initiatives. And any amendment of those initiatives that we had to make for any reason. And so what you would have tonight is that presentation ranging from the multi-tier systems of support to our anti-racist teaching and to the other initiatives that are associated with that umbrella of MTSS. And so, as you know, that we had a change of time this evening. Typically, we will start open session at 7 a.m. Whoa, p.m. Whoa, I'm really speeding it up. And
I slept through it.
and then now we have it started at 6 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. And so that can create some confusion because consistency is really critically important. And so when you make a decision, sometimes you have to consider these impacts. But I think what happened in this case with our Director of Professional Development and Assessment, she was, okay, don't start at 7, I'll be up here about 7:30, and nobody was explicitly telling me, meaning her, that we were making that change. So when she walked in at me, you should have seen her face when she looked at me like, and yeah, so, and that would have been early. So we were glad you were able to make it. Right now, she's working on some technical difficulties, as you see, and I'm stalling. I think I'm doing a pretty good job at that, right?
Meaning the essay word count, you're going to. You're doing great.
You picked that up. So, no, but with no further ado, I reintroduce to you our very own Director of Professional Development and Assessment. For those who don't know her or who already know her, need to be reintroduced, Michelle St. Clair.
Just 1 second, sorry, because I still am doing some technical things here.
We're not very good at stalling. We need to add more.
And she's very technically savvy, so, and so that computer must be, yeah. I would blame it on the computer, not the person this time, right?
It's always a computer's fault.
Yeah.
We could just go ahead and do our future board agenda items while she's doing this. We're in the middle of an item.
Well, your discretion, Madam Chair.
Director Sinclair, we'll pause this item for a second and give you a few more minutes, and we're going to do our agenda items. Is that okay? All right. I'm really shocked by the speed of this meeting.
I'm not sure how we did it, but we got to revisit how we did it.
So right now, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. We're going to be jumping all over the place here.
You may have spoke too soon, right?
Learn to hold my tongue. All right.
I said I was ready, but just 1 second. Sorry, every time it's a new way of doing it. Okay. Good evening, President Davidson. Congratulations. And Board Trustees CBO Kim, Superintendent Wells. It's nice to be here tonight. And I am, as Dr. Wells said, Michelle Sinclair, and I'm the Director of Professional Development and Assessment. There we go. Okay, so tonight I'm here to present, I'm here to provide an update on professional development. And as you know, I came a couple of months ago, so I'm just gonna kind of tell you where we are with our goals for implementation, okay? So as you know, the three initiatives that we're working on for professional development are MTSS, UDL, and anti-racist and culturally responsive teaching. So I'll just review this a little bit. It's a slide I showed earlier, but I think it's good to revisit, and also we have new board members, I see. So MTSS is a comprehensive framework, and it aligns academic, behavioral, and social emotional learning into a fully integrated system of support, and it includes it's data-driven decision-making, and it benefits all students, and that's really a key point of it, is to really look at address all students. Universal Design for Learning is also a framework, and it is to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all students based on scientific insights into how humans learn, and then also focused on addressing systemic barriers that our students face. And then anti-racist and culturally responsive teaching, which is uncovering and addressing biases and embracing curriculum and other strategies that are culturally responsive, and they're relevant to our particular families and students. So we look at professional development as a multi-year plan. It can't be done in one PD or 1 year even. I kind of look at it in these three phases of knowledge, application, and impact. So knowledge being generally the first year of just like really understanding what the initiative is. Having a common understanding is super important so that teachers, administrators, stakeholders all have that common understanding, and then planning or starting implementation of the initiatives. Then I look at the next phase is application, so that we're actually applying it in the classroom, and we're developing a sense of expertise by doing it over and over, and we have confidence. And then we're engaging in dialogue with peers. Teachers are collaborating around the subjects and talking about how to improve their practice. And then the impact around year 3 and more, many years more, is correlating the practice to student learning and really looking at data. Is this improving instruction, and make adaptations? Also, we know, I just want to state this, and this is Linda Darling Hammond's statement, is that PD that is sustained has a greater chance of transforming teaching practices and student learning, and we have to offer multiple opportunities over time to engage in learning around a set of concepts and practices. What does our professional development look like in Albany? We have our opportunities. We have staff developments every week, or staff meetings every week, and sometimes we get that time as a district or as a site to do PD. So those are every week, but then the district allotted times are 5 or 6 times a year. So we do, with elementary, we do what are called cross-site collaboration. So we pull all 3 sites together, and we're doing one tomorrow, and we get a chance to collaborate across sites. So TK through 5, or elementary through 5th grade, elementary and the high school have Wednesdays as their meetings, and then the middle school has Thursdays at their meetings. Next year, we're hoping to try to align that more so that middle school and high school can collaborate as well. We also have after-school meeting offerings. Those are optional for teachers, and we offer workshops here and there. We've done some on UDL, technology, and some math sessions. And then other PD days scheduled are at the beginning. This year we have it so that our PD days are scheduled at the beginning of the year, and then we have 2 at the end of the year. And next year we'll shift back to October PD day and March PD day, which is really exciting for us. So for staffing, we have elementary, middle school, and high school coaches. And then we also have a district TSA who kind of runs UDL. She does anti-racist teaching. She does ed tech. So multi-tiered systems of support, where are we? We have done a lot of staff trainings. We did a middle school staff training. We've done elementary. I'm planning to do high school. And so that teachers, again, it's kind of just an overview of what is MTSS, so teachers have that common understanding. And then we are reviewing data. We've been doing more data review than we have in the past. We've been looking at CASP. We've had the opportunity now to look at CASP scores again, or SBA. We're also looking at FastBridge. Principals are working with their sites and looking at specific data around literacy and math. Site administrators are doing a book study right now on MTSS. So that it's really important, particularly with MTSS, that administrators are on board with this, because it is really a systems thing. So it has to jive with what the principal's doing on a daily basis, really. And so we are working on the book study, and we're getting, again, a common knowledge and working around figuring out what our areas of strength are and our areas of weakness. We also are addressing MTSS in our wellness committee, and we're looking at the social emotional side of MTSS and thinking about what we can do as a committee of stakeholders, or what recommendations we can make as well. Anti-racist and culturally responsive teaching. As we've told you about before, we did some elementary work around this for the past couple of years, and now we're excited this year because in January we're going to start working with a consultant, Pamela Harrison Small. Her work is around exploring the influence of culture on individual identity and the school experience, examining the influence and impact of racism, power, and privilege in the educational process, and then discovering culturally responsive pedagogy and practices to facilitate success for all students. I worked with her in Berkeley, and she does a lot of work. She's worked in Oakland, and she does work with private corporations as well. So we're excited about that. High school's going to be doing like some 3-hour sessions, and then middle school will be doing they'll be doing it after school during that collaboration time on their Wednesday meetings or Thursday meetings. Universal Design for Learning. What you're looking at is a sort of flyer that Jen Gripman uses. She's been doing coaching cycles. So we're looking at, we've done some PD at staff. She has gone to staff meetings. She went with me to middle school staff meeting. She is doing, like I said, these coaching rounds. She's on starting up cycle 3 right now. Also, she's working with our our high school math coach, and they've developed a coaching sequence and an implementation guide, which they're super excited about, and they want to start working with high school teachers on that. And then also we need to build the capacity of our coaches too, so they are attending professional development as well. We have something scheduled for that. Math coaching, I asked the math coaches to give me some ideas for what they've been doing, and the list went on and on and on, but I kind of tried to capture some of the main ideas here. So they've been doing new teacher support, professional development for school staff. They've been going to school staff. Math coach collaboration. Dr. Shin and I collaborate with them every other week. They've been really focusing on using data to support implementation of programs. We're looking at online programs. We use some, and we're thinking about evaluating the effectiveness of those and how we can do that. At middle school, they're planning family math fun night. There is a lot of communication. I don't know if you've been able to see some of those. There's an A+ news. Also, at the high school, they're working on peer tutoring. They're creating a course description for that. They are focusing on standards and clarifying and updating standards, working on standard-based grading pilot, and developing parent volunteer programs in math support classes. Like I said, there was a lot more they were doing. They're super excited, and they have a lot of ideas moving forward. So now beyond our initiatives, I also want to talk about some of the work we're doing because it definitely affects the universal tier or the tier 1 of MTSS. We, as you know, adopted a new social studies curriculum, TCI. So we had the trainers out and they trained all our teachers in elementary school. Our middle school already uses that program. And then tomorrow we're going to do a collaboration on TCI. And we're going to get some support from the trainers as well. So pulling all 3 sites together tomorrow. And then what we're hoping to do in the future with TCI is once we get used to teaching a little bit, is thinking about how we can incorporate our social justice competencies and the Dawn books and other resources. So we're also, I want to add that we're also looking at our literacy practices, and Dr. Wells alluded to this a couple meetings ago. In early literacists, there's been recent dyslexia lawsuit in our area, and that's called a lot of attention to this subject. Many states have passed laws requiring screening for dyslexia or teacher training, or even some of their new teachers to pass a program before they start teaching. Our California Assembly bill requires that we screen for dyslexia and that we provide evidence-based, multisensory, structured, and sequential approach for teaching students with dyslexia. So we know that teaching students with dyslexia is also good for all students. So we're really looking at this, and we want to, make sure that we are doing everything that we can to serve our students. So evidence-based reading, what that means or what that refers to is the vast body of research about reading and writing that's been done really over the last 5 decades. It's been done across the world and in multiple languages. Because of this research, we know that instructional support for all students, as well as students with dyslexia, must include the 5 core strategies and practices, otherwise known as the 5 pillars of early literacy, which are phonemic awareness, which is the ability to identify sounds that make up speech, phonics, which is the ability to match sounds to letters or groups of letters, fluency, to be able to read quickly and accurately, and then vocabulary, expanding our vocabulary, and comprehension, making sure that we can understand what we read. So those are really, we need our program to encompass all 5 of those pillars. So that's what we're looking at. Let me just go to the next slide. So what are we doing? We're focusing on identifying resources, solidifying structures, providing professional development for teachers. We've done a series. We did one last year, and we're looking at doing another one this year. We have added some supplemental materials to our program. We use the Lucy Calkins, the units of study. That's our reading program. We're supplementing with a program that's called Foundations. That's kinder and first grade. It's a phonics program. And then we're also supplementing with SIPS, which is a long term. It's systematic instruction in phonological awareness. So that's a systematic program that teaches phonics in a systematic way, which is really important. We have used that program in intervention prior. We've been using it actually for quite a few years, and we're now trying to use that in our classroom. And this does 2 things. First of all, it provides phonics for kids that haven't previously received it necessarily, but also it addresses the universal tier of MTSS, because we really want to be able to address the needs of all kids in that first tier before we send them to the second to intervention, right? So this is a good way for us to really focus on small group work. And then planning for next year for K-5 literacy PD, we're looking at professional development. That is a series. I have a couple possibilities here, and what that would do for us is it's teaching us how to use data to measure progress and determine student needs, both screening data and diagnostic data, to use evidence-based practices like we were talking about, and then to focus on those 5 pillars of reading and instruction. The next steps. So these are the next steps I had in my last presentation, but I just want to kind of touch on them and say that we are doing these things. So, and we will continue to do these things throughout the rest of the year. We're looking at data. We're talking about MTSS, like I said. We are doing the coaching cycles with UDL. And I want to say that the coaching cycles are being done from TK all the way till 12th grade, and they're being done with different kinds of staff too. We had a principal doing some UDL and some other staff. Like I said, we're working on the anti-racist, culturally responsive teaching. We have a lot of math support, and then the new literacy plan. So what does this mean for next year? I have some planning to do. I would like to create a comprehensive plan that's ready to go prior to starting next year, and coordinate with site leaders so that I can get the dates I want, because that's always a hard pull, time. And then arranging training and PD with outside vendors or with our in-house coaches, determining our funding needs, and then determining our staffing needs. And that is it. Thank you.
I want to thank you for this. This has been very informative, and I'm going to let any other questions go first, but I do have a couple that I'm wondering about. So if anyone has questions, maybe just raise a hand and then we can, Student Board Member Dana.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. It was super comprehensible and everything. I just had one question regarding the literacy and phonics. I was wondering what we had that was different, that we're like, so we're switching into this, but what was there before? Because I was in kindergarten 12 years ago, and I do remember doing phonics, but like what sort of changed with that curriculum? And I just want to know the history a little bit.
Yeah, we have been doing phonics. That's part of our practice. It's been, some teachers were trained many years ago. I was trained in something called Reading Revolution, which was a great program because it had really great hand movements. But then as new teachers came aboard, we didn't necessarily have them trained. That program went defunct, and teachers still use it, but not systematically. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We want everybody to have a common pacing or path with phonics so that we know everything was covered. So that's the difference, really. We're still using the same curriculum, the units of study that we've been using now for, I think, about 7 years.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to go?
Yeah, Vice President Boyd.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Sinclair. So 3 questions, please. The first one is, when does screening first occur for dyslexia? And then related to that, once an assessment comes back as, the student having dyslexia, is there, and I think you talked some about, working on professional development on these issues, so I'm not sure if it's totally in place yet, but just curious if you're able to say a little about what happens after a positive screening comes back?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I feel like it's a little bit misleading because we don't diagnose dyslexia. We can screen students, and we see that when students are showing certain deficiencies in areas, we can suspect that they have some kind of a reading disability in that area, right? Even in special education, we don't diagnose. So sometimes students will come to us with an outside diagnosis. Otherwise, we see tendencies in these areas. So it's really important that we address it no matter what, right? So the screening is about what the state's requiring for screening is that we're looking at the right areas for screening. So Fastbridge does that in the assessment called early literacy that qualifies as a dyslexia screener. So do many other ones, but that's what we're using. And then we're looking at our students who are identified in what we would, the high risk areas. And we look at low risk too, so you don't know, because some students with dyslexia could go all the way through school and you would never know. So it's really, does it have an academic impact, an educational impact?
And that is it kindergarten, the Fastbridge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Kinder and first have early literacy, and then we move to A reading after that.
Thank you. And then second question is just about for the actual time for professional development. I know some of it, I think, is happening during like weekly meetings, and some sounds like it's maybe sort of, I wanted to understand kind of how much is sort of opt-in, like additional times outside of, what's kind of required to the extent, it's
Yeah.
mandatory. And then kind of relatedly, I know you talked about the importance of teacher and administrator buy-in, which is essential. And so it's just kind of related, I think, like how, whether you feel like that's kind of going well, if that's something that, can continue to be worked on, because I know it's so essential.
Yeah. So what I would say, first of all, about the scheduling, we do have for sure 5 or 6, I think this year we have 6 days where with elementary, I guess you would call it district operated, right? So I come in, that's like tomorrow, where I'll pull all the teachers together, and then we're doing something that is PD department determined. And then the optional PDs are really offered at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon after the duty day. Teachers get paid to do them. Right, it's optional. So we can't count on those. Like I really want to do a literacy PD next year that goes throughout the whole year. So I'm trying to negotiate those days that we have to decide on. And it's the same for middle school. So middle school and high school are also, they have days where the district can come in and do professional development. As far as, what was your next question? Sorry.
Like teacher administrator buy-in on these
Okay,
initiatives.
yeah, I think it's really important that we, in principals meetings, and this is what we're doing right now, is we really look at these initiatives and we, talk about what it means and what their part in this is. Because, principals have a lot on their plate. So we're trying to figure out, like right now, we're looking at how can we start this MTSS process with work that they can do that's feasible to bring back in the next meeting 2 weeks from now or what have you. So we're working on that. Also, we'll have the principals attending. They always attend the PD.
And my last question, which you hopefully will not mind my asking, is, are you stretched too thin handling this all, as well as evaluations and assessments, which is also in your purview? I know that they're related, but they're separate and they're time intensive. So do you need more support, or is this like workable?
No, I love doing it. It's, I've done it before, and so it's kind of fun to come back to it. It's a really fun thing to do because I love working with teachers. It's the assessment piece is new because of CASP being back in, and then now we're doing new alternative assessments that are, I have to learn. I'm on a learning curve. That's what I would say. So I think that once I get once I understand that CASP system a little bit better, next year it'll be a lot easier. I would always love more support. I'm really hopeful that we could, as we roll out this reading, I would love to have more reading support, mostly for teachers, not necessarily for me. I think coaching is a really good model, and supporting teachers in those kind of ways, because as we know, teachers are working all day with students directly, and they don't have much time for planning these things or for really looking into the latest research and what have you. So I would say that those are the areas. I'd love to have more of a coaching staff.
Thank you.
Let me just add the piece to the question, the second part of that. Most of you guys know that Michelle started off here as a teacher in Ocean View, and then she left to do her administrative career over in that district next door. The name slips me, Berkeley. And I had a chance to talk to her former superintendent, and he said, Frank, let me be real clear with you. My best administrator by far was a lady by the name of Michelle Sinclair. And so to your question, Trustee Boyd, someone who is so skillful and capable as Michelle, Michelle is not your typical administrator in PD, but someone else would need 2 or 3 more assistants to get this work done, and she's modest. And so if she needs more support, were the question, the short answer would be yes. But she makes it look easy because she's that skilled and capable. But I wanted to share that second part with you. So don't believe her when she says no.
Well, and I'm going to add that teachers, you know, like it's one thing to hear from us administrators, oh, you need to be doing this, administrator, but I feel like, or these initiatives, I feel like when teachers can see it modeled or they can have somebody, you know, looking at them teaching and giving them feedback, I feel like that's where you really see an impact. Just putting that out there.
Okay.
Trustee Rosen, you've been waiting for a while. You want to do it, and then we'll come down to you? Okay.
So I'm a little rusty about some things. I'm not rusty about some other things. But I really appreciate to see how things are moving forward for our kids. My very brief question is, I'm rusty. What is FastBridge?
FastBridge is our assessment system.
Okay.
So we do that 3 times a year. We're just about finishing.
It's a pre, mid-year, and post-assessment, and it gives us good feedback and current feedback on where kids are when they started with us in the beginning of the year, where they are at the middle of the year, whether or not we need to make some adjustments if they're not making adequate progress, and those who are making accelerated progress, what kind of enrichments we need to make. So we use assessments to guide our decisions about each and every kid. And so that before we initiated these kinds of initiatives, we only have one major assessment. That was the state assessment, and once you found out a kid is not doing so well, it's kind of too late. So we adopted and incorporated these assessments because we, me and a mouse in my pocket, knew that we had to do this kind of work so that we can use it to guide the collective efficacy for each and every kid. Because the research tells us, and even in my own work, that the greatest increases and the best evidence practice for increasing student achievement significantly is having teachers have an opportunity to grapple with the data and determine next steps. And if you don't have the data, you can't do all the other work.
So we have our own system of getting data through the air and applying it directly so that our kids will do the best they can, simplifying it. So Dr. Wells and I had a fairly substantive conversation about the literacy issues because the way that it was showed up in this, I had like a long list of questions, but we tried to clarify some of that. And we know that you talked about the 5 decades. In 5 decades, there's something going on called the reading or the literacy wars. And it's either this is correct or this is correct. Whole language, phonics. Which is right? Is there such a thing as science of literacy? Yes, but science is, it doesn't exist in a final stage. There's always something more that through theories. So for example, when we talk about evidence-based literacy practice, what's the evidence? How has it been developed? And how has it been warped by people who are trying to sell us books? Because some of the original studies in literacy, based on brain science, actually, there were huge reports back in the day, and they were synthesized down to something, and some of the facts were sort of eliminated or changed. So I think that what we were talking about is making sure that we reach the right conclusion for each student, which is not going to be the same. So phonics might be really appropriate in some situations and some not. You have to incorporate, even in whole language, people who really know about those studies know that you have to incorporate phonics in whole language practices because it helps with comprehension. In the English language, it's very difficult because I can sound out a word that's spelled the same, change the first letter, and it's pronounced entirely differently. So I really think we had a good conversation, but I'd like to see how we move forward and come up with a program that's comprehensive. I think that's the word we were using. Comprehensive for the best practices for each kid and individualized because every child learns differently.
Thank you for that. That's really a good segue into us looking at the umbrella of creating or adopting a comprehensive approach, and the 5 pillars is a part of that. And it's not either or, like the great debate was 32 years ago when Bill Honig was our superintendent and we went into war. And the state dictated to us as teachers, and I was teaching in Oakland at the time, and in elementary school, that you will use whole language, and that's it. And we all closed our doors and did what was best for kids, independent of what the state said. And then that argument kind of went away, and you got to do what works best and went to the evidence-based practices so that kids who learn differently get a different approach. But I think what is appropriate, more fitting, as you mentioned, is that we take on a comprehensive approach that includes the 5 pillars and our standards that we're required to adhere to, independent of the great debate, because when you start talking about phonemic awareness versus anything else, i.e. whole language, you get a debate at the kids' expense. And so as teachers experience, we know better to give the kids what they need. And in most cases, when they're holes in their learning, it is often they missed out on the phonemic awareness. And we have some studies that some kids can go through non-phonemic awareness and do just fine. But we don't know, so we don't want to leave any.
Exactly.
Yes, so I appreciate this. This creates such a wonderful discussion. For those who don't know, my doctoral dissertation was in early literacy. And it was award-winning and was invited to the United States Library of Congress. Because we adhered to some solid practices, our elementary school made the greatest academic achievement in the state of California. What made that so big was because the economic situation didn't change in that community, but the quality of instruction and practices did, and it sustained itself over the last 15 to 20 years. And so the governor ended up giving me, unbeknownst to me that it was coming, the governor's top academic achievement award. So literacy is where my expertise is. So I get really excited about this literacy, but I don't waste my time in debates because I think that's a waste of time. I do engage in what's best for kids, and we have a wonderful team that's committed to doing that kind of work. And so we expect as we begin to roll out our literacy plan, which, by the way, I'm going to give you a precursor to it, it would be called Literacy is Our Destiny. And because every kid needs to learn how to read and read well by 3rd grade, so that they all have opportunities to not just do well in school, but to excel. And so we're really, really excited about that work, adhering to the 5 pillars and the state standards, whether folks like it or not, because that is what we are charged with doing.
So when we know that, there are certain defined developmental stages that young children go through, which you would know from your studies. But they don't all reach the same stage at the same time. So some things might really help move a child forward. Some things might cut them off.
It's a good reason that we're implementing this MTSS and UDL is because it's to do exactly that. That's fantastic. Is it okay if I jump? Did you have another question? You good? More?
There were no questions. I was just pontificating.
Okay. I'm going to make sure that we get over to student board member Garcia Bustamante.
I just had a very, very quick clarifying question about the parent volunteer program for math support classes. I was wondering how, what's the idea of, how would that be structured? Would they receive any training beforehand on how to, help with math?
I'm sorry to say that I cannot give you the details on it. Annie J. told me about it, and I encourage you to ask her, or next time she could come and tell us more, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I do see she has raised her hand in the audience, so I can have her answer that really quickly if you'd like.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Can I add a question for her really quickly?
All right, let me pull her up and give her the ability to talk, and then you can
Wanted to come.
add a couple.
Hi, thank you. I don't think I can turn my camera on, but I'm at home, so it doesn't really matter.
Great hearing from you.
Do you need to hear the question, Annie J?
No, I heard the question. So I can talk a little bit. This is about the parent volunteers that we have in math classes. Right now, we only have 2 adult volunteers. One of them is a a parent of some Albany students, and the other one was a Berkeley High math teacher before he retired. So they're both have a lot of experience working with math curriculum, working with teaching students, and they are sitting in our math support classes. So there's an Albany High math teacher who's teaching the support classes, planning the lessons, running the lessons, and then they're in the class with that teacher, sitting with a group of students who might need a little more one-on-one support, and working with the teacher to decide how to support those students. So I met with each of them and did a little interview process to make sure it would be a good fit, and then paired them with a teacher to work with. And then they're collaborating with the teacher all the time, making sure what they're doing to support the students is in line with the curriculum that we use, is in line with best teaching practices, and is going to support the students to the best of their ability. So we're really excited about it. It seems to be going really well so far.
All right, go for it. And just to add on to that, I'd love to hear more about the lunchtime math tutoring, because I'd love to bring it to our leadership, possibly.
I'm not sure that we currently have a lunchtime math tutoring.
No,
Are you talking
that was a
about-
middle school program. Yeah, sorry.
Gotcha. Okay. Appreciate it.
And I don't have a middle school.
Can I jump? Oh, no. Can I jump in with one more, which is the standards-based grading pilot? If there's any more information on that one?
Yeah, I can talk about a little bit about that one as well. That's something that I'm doing with, or that we're doing with our Math 2 classes. We've been looking for ways to identify specific areas where students have learning gaps or knowledge gaps that we need to fill in. And one of the ways that I've really found to do that is to take your grade book and make your grade book based on the math standards that you want students to learn, rather than based on like a test category and then a quiz category and then a homework category. And so we're looking at that as a strategy to help specifically our Math 2 students identify what they're learning, how they're learning it, and then inform both the students and the teachers what things they might be struggling with, so that they can prepare better for tests and quizzes, and they can master that material by the end of the year. We're talking as a department about whether or not we like the idea of standards-based grading and how it's going, and if it's something that we want to look at rolling out to more classes. Right now it's just a sophomore Math 2 initiative.
Well, I'll be curious to hear what comes of that. I have just one other super quick question, and Annie J, thank you so much. This one is for the SIPs. So is that something that our teachers are doing in the classroom? Are we having small groups pulled out or someone pushing in?
Our teachers are implementing that slowly. So we've moved it in. At Ocean View, we did it last year. We have a teacher here who did it, we pulled groups and according to their level, and taught them. SIPS comes in different levels, and so we're able to teach them in their small groups that really targeted what they needed. And we're hoping to try to roll that out a little bit more, but right now we're training teachers in using the program, those who have not used it before.
Okay, I'm just wondering, so I'm watching it in Oakland and seeing that they're doing it in the small groups as well, and I'm just wondering if it is really something that needs to be done in small groups, or if it's going to be as effective in a whole class.
Yeah, I mean, it can be done both. I talked a long time to the rep, and you know, we have used it for intervention, and so that's where they will group kids together by ability. But if we could get a system like we did in second grade last year, where we are grouping students in the same need area, then that's super helpful. But it can also be done with full class. As a matter of fact, I've seen it done at fourth grade. SIPS Challenge, which is a little bit higher level of SIPS, and it's phenomenal. It's like all the kids were, and it was really working on multisyllabic words, and all the kids were breaking them down. It was just amazing to me, the lesson. So I think it can be beneficial in both ways.
I feel maybe like different levels need different things, and I'm sure different years will find different needs. So I hope that we can keep our eyes on it and our ears on it. Does anyone else have any questions on the, no? Okay, there's one public comment on here, and Jeremiah.
Yeah, hi. So I was going to say a few things. One of the questions was the American Sign Language. What age or what grade is just simply the alphabet introduced for American Sign Language? That was one question. Also, I was going to point out the lunchtime math tutor for the middle school. If the high school lunchtime and the middle school lunchtime was the same time, maybe a high school student could possibly walk down to the middle school and help out for a half an hour or something like that. Let's see. Oh, also, I was going to point out that during COVID, a lot of people, pretty much everybody was wearing masks. And right now, the kindergarten age group, they may be having a difficult time, reading lips, or just when people are talking, the phonics or some sort of, learning abilities to catch on when people are talking. So I was wondering if the school district was kind of gonna follow this age group kind of through school, or just kind of take note that the past couple years everybody was wearing masks, so the younger kids, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, may have some learning difficulties of not being able to see people talking because of wearing masks. So just want to point that out. But my main question was, what grade or what age group were you introducing just a simple alphabet for American Sign Language? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment on that. Do we have any answers, or do we need to get back to him on that one?
I mean, I can't answer to American Sign Language. I'm not sure if it's done in the high school.
Yeah, it's not done as part of our curriculum, general curriculum, and that's the short answer to that.
All right. Yeah.
I just had one last comment, which was to hope that in future, I understand this is regarding the anti-racist consultant, if that's the right name for her position, who's working with the middle school and the high school, which is excellent. I'm really excited about that. And just to suggest or hope that in the future she will be able to work with the elementary teachers as well, understanding that a great deal of work has already been done with the teachers, and I can't say enough good things about Jen Gripman. She is a wonderful person and incredibly passionate and skilled and wise in the work that she does, but recognizing that this is a continuing, kind of never-stopping effort, I'm hoping that those teachers will also get the chance to work with this consultant sometime in the future.
Yeah, and this consultant in Berkeley also worked with family groups, so I'm wondering about that too, but we'll see to come.
All right, seeing no other questions or comments, we are going to adjourn this item. And thank you so much, Director Sinclair, for getting here early and jumping in and being so thorough and giving us all this information. I'm really excited to see how this rolls out over some time. I think it's really cool to kind of watch this as it's a progression over a few years, and knowing that that's what we're anticipating, not thinking we're getting a wham bam, here's MTSS. So I really also, Superintendent Wells, appreciate that you're sort of leading this in that manner, and that we know what we're expecting. All right, so with that, we are going to jump to our future agenda items introduced by members of the board. All right, Student Board Member Dana.
Yeah, so we are planning on presenting the SAC, that is, and I just want to make sure that that item is on the board for probably mid-winter or so, just so that the stuff that's going to be on our slideshow is still relevant, because we interviewed the elementary schoolers around the November time, so we want to make sure it's as quick as possible. So that's all.
Great. Anyone else have anything?
I was just going to say that I'd like for the CO2 monitoring system that was mentioned during public comment for that to be on the future agenda. Thank you.
Any others? We're good? All right, well, guys, with that, our meeting is adjourned.